In the design and engineering space, Australia has made a name for itself as one of the biggest contributors to the world we know today. From the humble electric drill and the polymer banknote to world-changing innovations like the black box flight recorder, medical ultrasound, and even the Wi-Fi that you could be using to watch this video right now. Now, while the manufacturer that I'm talking about today isn't building something completely brand new, they are designing a motorcycle from the ground up in, let's face it, a day and age where it's getting harder and harder to do that inside of Australia. Every nut and bolt, every panel, and every tiny little detail has been meticulously designed by the team here in Melbourne. And today, I'm riding their first ever production motorcycle. This is the SAVIC C-Series. While the C-Series is not the kind of bike that you'd typically race against a superbike like the BMW S1000RR, the 250 Newton meters of torque that the electric motor puts out instills a sense of acceleration superiority that absolutely makes you think you could. And while that may seem like a ridiculous amount of power available at a theoretical 0 RPM, that power is filtered through a very tenderly adjusted throttle map so you don't accidentally whiskey throttle yourself into the next moon landing. When you get a motorcycle that is 280 kilos, which isn't light, what you can do is you can lower the center of gravity. You can stretch the handlebars out a little bit wider, and that helps you gain leverage over that weight. So not only do you get really good traction because you've got extra weight pushing down on the tire, you actually also get pretty decent handling because you've got all this leverage and such a stable planted platform down on the bottom. The suspension has actually been set up by Australian superbike racer Jed Mecher, personally by him. Now, he knows a lot about this sort of thing and he knows a lot about suspension, and you can tell because this thing is sprung exceptionally well. In fact, I would say that this is the most well-sprung electric bike that I've ever ridden, and I have ridden quite a few. I've ridden a couple of the Evokes, I've ridden pretty much the whole range of Zeros, and this bike is leagues in front of that. Now, I don't know if this suspension comes with every single model. I'm sure that could be arranged, but generally speaking, I haven't really ridden an electric bike that feels this good as far as the suspension is concerned. Now, the ergonomics, the seating position, don't let the clip-on style handlebars fool you. It's actually quite upright. I've come off my R7. I got off the R7 and got onto this. Now, the R7 is a very aggressive bike, the previous generation, but in saying that, getting on this, the handlebars are quite upright. And that's not a bad thing at all. That's actually a good thing because it still has that clip-on look, it still has that cafe racer look, but you also get the benefit of not killing your back when you try to ride the thing for long periods of time. Now, riding for long periods of time on an electric bike must be a joke, right? Well, 200-ish kilometers of range isn't that bad, to be quite honest with you. I don't really know if that's in sport mode or standard, but generally speaking, that 200 kilometer range is pretty close to what you would expect out of any mid-sized petrol bike. The difference being, obviously, it takes about 5 minutes to fill a fuel tank, and it takes a little bit longer on this to charge it. Speaking of these clip-ons, they are quite wide, and the bike does have these big bar end mirrors, just like a Triumph. Now, big problem with these is when you're filtering, you don't really get as thin as you would like. So some sport bikes, some cafe racers and naked bikes with those little tiny clip-ons are going to be much better for that sort of thing. But in saying that, this still does filter quite well. However, you do have the issue that it is electric and you do not make much noise, and that can be a bit daunting at first because, as a lot of us riders know, when your bike is a little bit noisy, people tend to notice you a little bit better. Now, there is research to suggest that that's not actually true and all this sort of thing, and I don't believe that the loud pipes save lives crowd is justified in having a complete straight pipe Gixxer or Harley absolutely vibrating every window that it rides past. But in saying that, personally, already I have noticed a difference that on my R7, which has a tasteful exhaust, the Acura racing one, drivers did seem to notice me coming a bit more. So that is something to keep in mind. But in saying that, that is probably like 10 to 15% of how you actually become visible on the road. And in order to stay visible on the road, you're gonna have to ride defensively if you own one of these. It's just a fact that unfortunately people can't hear you coming. Although that is your benefit when you want to creep around footpaths and try and find cool spots to take photos like I was doing before. I was actually right behind a couple. They were walking their dog and even the dog didn't hear me coming. It was great. When you put this up against other motorcycles in the same sort of segment, like the Zero SR, this is actually pretty much on par with that, and yet these things are custom built. These are made to order. You go on the website, there's a bike builder, you can buy all sorts of accessories for them, carbon fiber bits, all that sort of stuff. And even then, you're not gonna be spending more than like 34 grand. So overall, this is actually such a good bike for the money if you are looking for an electric motorcycle. I understand that, yes, the styling is a bit divisive. Although, in saying that, I've had about 5 different people come up to me today while riding this around saying, God, that's a beautiful bike, isn't it? You know, and asking me all sorts of questions about it. And the number one thing that I've noticed about this bike is that people are blown away when they realize that it's made here in Melbourne. That is one of the biggest kudos to this bike and this company overall.
With rain, road, sport and custom rider modes, you're able to get the bike to behave in a way that suits you better. And with new switch blocks on the horizon with cruise control functionality and a few other additions, there is something that is important to remember with the C-Series. It's homegrown and it's brand new. And just like any Aussie kid cutting their teeth while riding around the block, there are some things to figure out before the old fruit shop owner stops yelling at them. The seat looks great in that classic flat cafe style, but because it's quite narrow, you start to become very familiar with what bones exist in your backside after 40 minutes, which, on a sunny day, is hard to take note of, because the dash is angled in such a way that glare makes it hard to read. Forgive those small issues though, and you really can feel the passion and care that exists in the team designing this bike.
Okay, so now we're at the part of the video where I go over some of the viewer questions that you guys have sent me on Instagram. So the first question is from Mito. Mate, what's going on? Is it overhyped? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know about overhyped. I haven't really seen a lot of people glazing this bike. There are definitely some things that people would like to see improved, me included, which you're going to see in this video. But generally speaking, this is an electric motorcycle done extremely well. And I think with the rest of the review, you're going to see why I think that. But overall, I don't think this is overhyped at all. I actually think this is a pretty good bike, especially considering the design brief, what this is actually trying to achieve. Okay, Flynn has asked me how many cc's. 0, mate. It's an electric bike, you fuck. All right, and then the final question, someone has asked me, is the bike heavy? Well, yes, it is. It's heavy. It's 280 kilograms. They've asked, how does it handle considering it's heavy? Well, with heavy bikes like this, there are ways to mitigate that. And I've gone over that in this video with lowering the center of gravity, upright handlebars that are wider, set apart, really help in managing that extra weight. When you're pushing the bike, it's not very good. You do definitely feel the weight, but the benefit is this bike actually has reverse like a lot of electric bikes do. So you don't actually have to worry too much about wheeling it around very often. In conclusion, this bike isn't really for the type of rider that's a sport bike demon, a stunt rider, or a long distance traveler. It's more designed for the type of rider that's a fan of industrial design and the industries around it.
The kind of rider that enjoys the riding habits of a cafe racer and isn't fussed about loud pipes, track days or wheelies. And that's blatantly evident in the name C-Series. You will get a lot out of this bike. And while it is definitely designed around cafe hopping and casual urban riding, you are definitely not limited to that. 200 kilometers of range and a Type 2 charger means you'll be able to find a spot to top up outside of the city, and the power, handling and suspension won't leave you wishing for more in the twisties. So all in all, this is the type of bike that I could see quite a lot of people migrating to if you're the type of person who owns, you know, a BMW Cafe Racer or a Triumph Cafe Racer, and maybe dip your feet into the electric vehicle world. I find that it's not going to leave you wanting for much more, and for the type of bike that it is, it definitely hits the nail on the head. And it's really difficult for me to bring up anything overly wrong with it. I mean, there's stuff that I've mentioned in this video already about, you know, things like the fit and finish, the fact it's the first ever production motorcycle from this company. And so you're going to come across teething issues, you're going to come across design features that they need to update or they need to change when they get feedback, the more and more people ride it. But like I said, if you were to look at KTM's first road bike, you're probably going to come up with the same sort of gripes and issues. It's just something that happens. And for those people that are early investors, they're definitely the types of people that are invested literally in Australian design and Australian creations. So overall, this is a really good bike, and it really is one of the better electric bikes that I've ever ridden. I actually think it's probably the best handling and the most comfortable to ride out of all the electric bikes that I've ridden so far. All right, that's the video for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Like I've said previously, it is still just me doing all of this, trying to make the highest quality production that I possibly can for you guys to watch. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you aren't already, and share the video if you can, because it means a lot to me, and it means that I'll be making more and more of the content that you guys are so far enjoying anyway. Let me know what you think of this bike in the comments below, and let me know what bike you want me to ride next.